Hello, hello. Here we are again. Welcome back to me for another episode of the SaaS Show, right?
I think you don't know anymore which episode we are on.
I do. It's number 11 as far as my counting goes.
Fair enough.
That being said, I want to discuss something that happened in the company recently. A couple of reviews. We do them every 6 months with people. And of course, in our team, we have CTOs, we have engineers, and we saw that there is some kind of tension building up between engineering and the CTOs in our teams because of how the CTOs, I guess, use AI and how the engineers feel. I wouldn't say threatened by it, but they're annoyed by it, I guess. And I think last week we had a good group discussion. I wasn't there. I would love to. I mean, I read you wrote a nice blog post about it, and I would love to discuss a bit like how you felt about it.
Yeah. I think maybe for context, I think tension is maybe a big word. I think what we see is that we're leveraging AI, we're leveraging it as developers, but also our CTOs. They set up structures to leverage AI on projects. And I think it was interesting to see that there was some, coming into each other's territory, let's put it like that. And it was interesting to then have a discussion about how we can solve it. If we have it within our team, we will definitely encounter it on clients. And I think other people maybe listening to the podcast will have encountered it as well. I think that's the premise of the group discussion kind of went into. And I think there's a couple of things, interesting things that came out. Maybe first, a smaller one, but nonetheless important, is that there is a difference between things that are human, that need to be read by humans, where the audience is humans and the audience is the AI, right? It's very easy to create a lot of text. What we will see for CTO is like it's easy to create issues, it's easy to create pull requests, but a lot of text in it. I think that's already something because to pay attention to, because on the other side, there's still a developer who has to review it. I think at this point we're still human in the loop. Developers will have to review all of the text. And I think that was one of the first friction points. Like, okay, a lot is being produced by the systems that the CTOs had set up, like I would say the agentic pipelines, and then how do we process it as engineers and keep it manageable? Like that was one
I think
tension point.
one of the things, I mean, because I went before the group discussion, I went into detail a bit on what the tension was about or the remarks were about. And what surprised me is was not on the code. It was not on the code produced by the LLM. It was indeed because one of our CTOs is using this agentic pipeline in a project, and he was basically, yeah, the agent was creating a lot of context in the GitHub issue and in the pull request description. Not it was just one line of code change, but it resulted in, let's say, 50 lines of text. And it was, I think it was because the length tried. We have like a template on GitHub, right? That describes like what you need to fill in when you make a pull request, and it tried to fill that in as good as possible. I think we have the same for an issue, so there it also tried to fill in it as good as possible, with lots of information that you absolutely don't need. And I guess that's where the engineer, I think, rightfully said basically this is rubbish, not because of the line of code, but because I have to read all this stuff, right? That's generated, while it could be one line, and I don't actually know if the I don't really understand the problem that was there in the first place because it's so bloated, right? So it's blown up, right? Second, the pull request, it says so many things in the text, but it was really changing like 80 pixels to 120 pixels.
Yeah.
That was the only change it was. So it was a lot of information to just explain. I made it wider, right? And then he said, I had no clue if this fixed the problem, like the root cause. And so, yeah, that's, I guess, where the friction started. And I think it's being diligent of each other's time. And that's one thing. And second, also, it's signing off. Like, who is signing this off? Is it the CTO? Is he confident in the work that the agentic system is doing? I mean, then yes, for sure, no problem. But then, of course, the input needs to be done very well. Or is it the engineers that need to sign it up because they do a code review? And this was a very stupid example, but there was another example where the code was very good. Right, it was a bigger change. It looked good from the code reviewers. Two people reviewed it. It looked like the right solution. Also, the description was right of the issue, and the pull request was also, I mean, the comments or the description of the pull request was clear as well. But what you saw is that basically no one actually dug into the issue and thought about it twice, right? So basically, they totally forgot about an edge case,
Mm.
which occurred in production, and of course, that slipped into production. I think that's where basically we become a bit lazy, or we are not necessarily lazy, but because there is so much pull requests being created by such a agentic pipeline, you don't have the time to carefully read and understand what's happening and form your own idea of like, how should we do this? And that's what worries me a bit. I don't know if you could discuss that as well.
Yeah, I think maybe the first part you talked about is, you mentioned it's the CTO who set up the agentic pipeline. I think that's inherently, it's maybe not the best approach, right? We discussed that internally as well. And, what is important there is that in the end, the developers, they're still in charge of the code base and what comes out of it, and they have accountability there. So what is important is that this system, this agentic pipeline, I think everybody is working towards that, pushing it on every of our internal projects. We're seeing it clients as well. You need to have that in place, but you need to set it together. The developers are in the end responsible for the output, have to review it. So they need to have close control as well in making sure this setup is there. They can fine tune it. And just as with a junior developer, they need to gain trust in the system. So as it does more work, it picks up smaller issues first, does those well, we can fine tune it to pick up bigger issues, and then they gain more trust in it, and also the review process, just as you would have it, a senior peer. You're like, okay, I trust this person. Like, I don't need to go that deep, or he will may have made the right assumptions. So I think that's one aspect that is important, is set up the system together, and that will make sure that you don't have the divide. I think what can happen is that CTOs, I've seen it with clients again, it will overrule their development team and say like, okay, we need to go AI. And then this is like, oh, I found this thing online. I'll put up this agentic pipeline. And it's with good intentions, right? But as always, it's about making sure you do it collaboratively and you work on setting up the system. It's like the same you would do with like you setting up Jira or a project management tool. In the end, it's both the CTO, but also the developers that have a say in it. I think that's very important to lower that friction as well.
Yeah. Yeah. We say CTO, but it goes to be a product manager, engineering
Yeah,
manager,
engineering
whatever.
manager. It's
Yeah.
all those roles. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a bit,
Yeah.
it's broader than that.
Interesting. I think one thing, and I don't know if it's possible, one thing that probably could already help is before the agentic system dives into implementation, that it, like with Terraform, actually, you have like Terraform plan and then Terraform confirm, I think it's called, where basically it first shows what it will change or suggest like the chain of ideas that it has. And then you can sign off like you would do with a generic developer. You would walk up to them, or you would have a quick pairing session with them to discuss like, how are you going to take this problem, and then only dive into it.
Yeah.
So you know it's doing the right thing.
I think there an important distinction for us as well is that it's a spectrum of the kind of work that you can hand off to AI at the moment. So every project will have an automatic agentic pipeline. So that's going to be there. But you need to have some kind of triage system of what work you can fully like automate, and then other work. Well, the principles of I guess the Agile manifesto still hold. Like, collaborate closely up front as humans, come up with a plan. Ideally, make a draft PR of what you want to do. Let other people look at it, and then you can get your flankers, as they like to call it nowadays. Get your AI on it and take it from there. I think even that triage system is going to be important. There's going to be a step
Yeah,
before everything will go to developers. Now it's like, okay, that can go to AI. Needs to go to team first.
super. Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
I think it's a very interesting discussion, and for sure it will change over time. So yeah, see you in 2 weeks.
perfect.
Have a
Cheers.
see ya.
Bye bye.